It's snowing here. Rain is not till tomorrow morning.
So, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So,
Wa alaikum
today,
salam wa rahmatullah.
today's topic is going to be about setting up halal businesses and investments, and looking at that into a bit more detail, looking at the hidden clauses, what are hidden clauses, giving real examples about that, and talking about the current market for business, setting up business in the UK, and investments. So, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh again, what's up?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Umar, how are you doing? Okay?
Alhamdulillah, it's very, very good. It's a bit cold. You can see I've got my scarf on.
Yeah. The temps are plummeting, but I hope you're nice and warm. And that jumper looks warm. Even I'm feeling warm just by looking at it.
Yeah, it's warm. Alhamdulillah. So yeah, this is moving on from a lot of the research and a lot of the work that we've been doing over the past couple of years, talking to people, talking to a lot of different people from grassroots all the way through to conglomerates and banks and multi-billion-pound companies. And we're talking about setting up a halal business, because what we're seeing a lot more of a trend now, and this halal niche is starting to become a lot more predominant in the market, especially our own Muslim market. And as the global market closes in on itself, it's being able to do trade in Dubai or Malaysia or Muslim countries is become a lot more easier. So we want to just touch on what is actually a halal business and how do we actually know that the business is halal, because what we discussed over our case studies, etc., is that a lot of businesses and some of the shocking case studies that we've seen where people have lost a lot of money, and then as you sift through the process, you see there's a lot of barakah just being seeped out. It's like a bucket with water, right? And you think that you're putting a lot of water in, and you can't understand why is the holes just seeping water out, and you don't know where to find it. So over to yourself, really, in relation to the businesses.
Yeah, so I think you touched upon 2 points there. One is on a local level. As a community, we become more affluent. Some of us are now second, third generation economic migrants. Let's not hide away from the fact that it was our financial situation which drove us to leave our homelands and arrive on these shores, as cold as they are, since most of us came from more warmer climates. And we came here economic driving forces. There were pull factors as well, because most of us are from the Commonwealth, which was part of our great queen Victoria's massive empire, which included what was in those days referred to as British India, which then splits and we get India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and those countries associated. So we were economic migrants. We came here. We didn't really have much to our name, but what we were is very thrifty. We worked very hard. We saved a lot of money. It's quite interesting when I had when you have conversations with elders, that not only were they able to secure a property in this country, many of them sent money to elderly parents and siblings to another country. So they were in essence supporting two families, which is remarkable for a migrant community who's turning up, can't speak a word of the language. So they did very, very well. But as we started to grow up, and then our children are growing up, they're now, they consider themselves English. They are educated here. They are well educated here, and they obviously then can move on to well-paid jobs. And now, because the issue of buying houses to a certain extent, because we tend to live in larger families, is not too much of a concern, then there is more money to spend. So the local government and also the Muslims themselves are realizing that we are spending a lot more money in the UK. Let's take that as an example. And therefore having those businesses and services which Muslims can use is going to be a good idea. You even here, in sunny Bradford, you'll find that there's a dozen shops which just specifically just have chai shops, and there's every brand of those chai shops. And that would have been an unheard thing, that people actually leave their house to go buy a cup of tea. It was just not something that people did. But now that's what it is. People are wealthy enough to do those kind of things. So that's why the halal niche has grown tremendously. So not only is it the Muslim community looking at that, it's also the non-Muslim community that's becoming aware of it and knowing that the Muslim community is spending And as a result, it's got that. On a global level, again, you touched upon that point, is now we're finding that post 1970s and 80s, the GCC, the Arab world, as it's broadly called, is wealthy due to oil, is now looking at other ways of making an income. So it needs external investments, it needs external expertise, and then knowing the Muslim community and what they can do is vital and useful. And also transporting that outside of that world into the West is of an interest as well. So you can see those factors are what driving having a business or service which will be something that the Muslims can engage in. And that's where the famous word halal comes from, because halal literally means legal, means it is permitted to engage in that. So that's an area that's growing, and therefore you're seeing that the community are kind of demanding that they won't engage in a service or a product unless it is halal. But saying halal and being halal are two different things. We have, over the course of our conversations over the weeks, and especially now we're running these sort of podcasts, been discussing what halal is. And halal is everything from how you do business to actually the product and service that you're providing.
Right. So when we're looking at that from a legal term and the hidden clauses, can you give us some examples? Because as we're talking to our community, and we've talked to a lot of people, we just within our network, like as we counted the other day, which was quite surprising, we've got 98,000 people, close to 98,000 following across various platforms, etc. Is we look at halal as interest, pork, pornography, etc. And those are what we look at. And so a brother who sets up a business, or a sister who sets up a business, and they just look at those broad categories and they don't know what else to look out for, because those words have never even reached their ears. Because few terms that you said to me over the years, the first time you said it was, I've never heard that term before. So if you can give us some examples of that.
Yeah, so trade and business going back centuries was really simple. You would walk into a market, you'd see something that I'd have, and you'd say, I want to buy that. I'd say, fine. We would now decide how you're going to pay for it, and we would now decide how and when I'm going to get that item to you. That was really it. It was really simple trade. I want that bottle of water. Right, it's £2. Okay, are you going to give me that £2 now? No. Could I give you that £2 next week? Yeah, fine. What time? 2 o'clock. I'll go and bring it. Okay, there you go. There's a bottle of water. Let's write on a piece of paper that you owe me £2, and that was it. But now, obviously, we're now buying and selling across the internet. We're buying and selling with people that we don't even meet. We now live in a world of liabilities. We now live in a world of suing and counter-suing in courts. So now we're finding that companies and organizations are getting very, very careful that they're not exploited. So therefore, instead of a nice, simple, can I have that bottle of water? Yes, you can. Here's £2. There's a bottle of water. It's now you're getting a document that is like 5, 10, 15 pages long, with all these, the first page is just about definitions, party one, party two, who is party one, who is party two. And again, so that's just the first 2 pages. Once you've got past that point, then you're going and other terms that are being used throughout the document. Then you're getting into the body of the terms and conditions, the clauses, as it's referred to, that this person will do this person will do that. And that's it. And that can, as I said, last for 3, 5, whatever, 10 pages. So we are seeing now that transacting, doing business is complicated. Everything is now complicated. Why? Because we don't live in that simple world that we lived in. We touched upon, just now before we came on air, about the simplicity of life, even going back to the 1970s. But you can see that life is so complicated now in terms of how we do business. It's complicated in all areas. And those of us who have a traditional relationship, it's pretty simple. But those now that don't have a traditional relationship, even relationships are now complicated. Before you were either married or not married, now there's so many different ways you could be interacting with another person. So we as a people, as humanity, are becoming more and more complicated. As we're becoming more and more complicated, we're trying to ensure, or businesses are trying to ensure, that they're not taken advantage of. So that's why you see all these terms and conditions come in. Now, for standard person, a normal person, if I can use that word, they're not going to have that kind of level of expertise to read through all the terms and conditions. Most people don't even read through them. I'm sure if you've bought a new phone or a new printer, you don't really sit down and read through everything. Nowadays, you have a quick user guide, which is normally a page long, which tells you exactly what to do. Press the on button and wait for the wording sound to stop, and then you can print, and that's it. So you're seeing now that there has to be some kind of understanding of how these transactions are constructed. So this is where these, you've used the phrase hidden clauses or terms are, because you're kind of sent on a little bit of, not a wild goose chase, but you see a reference being made in one term, which you then have to go check in another one, which then brings you back to another one before you can decide that is there anything that's going on that's untoward. So here you need to have expertise of the Sharia in terms of the buyu, what kind of way transactions occur. You've got to have some understanding and expertise of contract law, and you've got to somehow be able to superimpose the books of fiqh over this contract to see where the issues lie. You then got to be able to recognize those issues, label those issues. Why do you need to label those issues? Because you need now to solve them. So it doesn't help saying to somebody, sorry, you got a problem in your terms and conditions. Okay. Anything else? No, I'm not going to tell you. You just got problems with terms and conditions. Could you point out which one? I'm not so sure, but it doesn't help. So you got to say, I have a problem with term 6.1. What's the issue with it? Well, the way it's worded is worded like this. Oh, okay. Well, I'll remove that. Fine. Fantastic. Remove that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Problem solved. Somebody might say, well, sorry, I can't remove that. Why can't you remove it? Well, I can't remove it because I need that because okay, I understand that now. Well, can you not rephrase that? Or how can I rephrase it? Please tell me you could rephrase it like this. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I can rephrase it like that. Can I? Yep. Okay, so he rephrases it. Now it's okay. So it's having that kind of understanding because, you touched upon I think when we were talking about, millionaire, billionaire and social media, you touched upon, is it wrong in this way to kind of, push towards this kind of a wealthy situation? Of course, it's not wrong, but it's trying to make sure that those terms and conditions are sound. So that's really the understanding that we have with regards to sort of hidden clauses and making sure things are right. You then touch broadly upon what kind of products we would see as problematic and what kind of services we'll see as problematic. So those are usually pretty obvious to see. But even in those, there can be something which is a slightly, if it's a service where there could be implications that it relies on something else. So sometimes what you find is that one contract is based on another contract. So when we're working, say, with the payment processor, then you have a merchant bank and you have another contract to do with the merchant bank, and then that contract. So even though you don't see the contract which is in the merchant bank, it actually relates to it in the contract that you're having with the payment processor. So it's an implied term and condition. So you can see it gets quite, complicated, and, people can switch off after a while, but you need to have that kind of in-depth understanding of things in order to be able to tease these things out.
So what you're saying there is good intentions isn't enough.
Oh, absolutely not. Good intentions is the start.
That's a good.
That's not
a good
the
way
end.
to start that.
Yeah, good intentions is the start. It's not the end. Good intentions is how we start everything off. Do we finish off on good intentions? No, because that's our first step. After that, we need to take those necessary steps in order to make sure that everything is sound.
Because what you said there, so the good intention is just a start, but understanding the T's and C's, understanding what you're getting into in relation to your business, because you see a business niche and you say, I can make that niche halal, because that's what we're basically doing at the moment. Those products exist, but the product that I will bring is halal, or it's another opportunity. The product is halal, but my halal product that doesn't state halal, mine will state halal. But then you don't really look into, for example, ingredients. So you'll have people saying, I'm going to make halal nail polish, or I'm going to make halal skincare. Why was the other one haram? Well, in that product, there was pork. Okay, in my product, there's not going to be pork, but there's going to be other things that are not. And it might not even be that the example that you gave the other time in relation to, okay, your product's halal, but then the T's and C's that you attach, I will charge you interest on this, I will charge you interest on that, I will charge you interest on this. If you don't do this, interest will be paid on that. And what you said was quite interesting. So that's one side of it. The other side of it is, I'm not going to use the word interest, but I'm still going to charge you interest.
Yeah. It's a good one. Let's just take that face cream as an example, because I think that's a good one. Is that, yeah, even to the untrained eye, even to the person who's maybe spent a couple of days in a maktab, even to somebody who's had very little Islamic learning, will know that pork is haram, but they won't know anything else in there. That, sometimes people have seen some, isobutanol, and they'll say, oh, is that an alcohol? Because it sounds like, all on the end. Is that okay? Ethyl alcohol, is that the same as ethanol? So this is chemistry now. Is ethyl alcohol the same as ethanol? And then we start to think, well, okay, are all ethanols the same? Does the hadith mention all ethanols, or does the hadith mention something through the fermentation process of dates and grape? What is the ethanol that's being used in this particular face cream? Is it synthesized in the laboratory? Is it coming from a carboxylic acid? Is it coming from a ketone? How is this being manufactured? So this is not, this is full on chemistry, organic chemistry. This, even for the untrained person, won't understand this. And then what is this cream? What process is this cream going through? Back in the day, like I said, life was very simple. You just went, that there was some milk there and you use the milk. Now these creams, which are synthesized and manufactured, are going through so many different processes. So, and you don't have that. Then you go to, like you mentioned there, where if you're buying bulk, so let's just say I'm buying cream in bulk, and I have an arrangement with the manufacturers that I will pay, £2,000 a month, and I will receive 2,000 units a month. And if I'm delayed in my payments, then I will be charged interest on the APR, or plus 2%, all the rest of it. So I sign up to that. Now, obviously, the product I'm buying is halal. I've got a chemist, organic chemist, and that organic chemist has told me that product is halal. You got nothing to worry about. Fine, I'm really happy. But the contract I just signed on to is problematic, because in the way, if I'm a default on payments, I'm now going to be charged interest for it. So we say, oh, okay, you know what? We'll speak to the person and say, I can't pay interest. Oh, no problem. We'll reword that for you. And what should we call it? That's a fine. So you'll pay a fine. And what should we use to pay the fine for? Why don't we just use the LIBOR, or just use the interest rate as a fine? Sounds like a good idea. So have you really removed that issue, or have you just reworded it, made it more comfortable? So, there's so much going on there that needs to be unpacked in order to truly understand what's going on. And to just take a very simplistic view and just call it halal is problematic and dangerous, to say them.
Because where you've gone from there, from good intentions, isn't enough. What you don't want to do is fall for the sales tactic. And what we've seen now with halal business, halal online marketing, to halal products and services, to halal finance, to halal banking, to halal mortgage, to halal, and some terminologies might actually mean what it says. Others are just hidden behind the shield of that and as presumed to be halal. And
that's right. And the other issue is that something which is slightly dubious, if a specialist scholar has not determined that to be halal and you consider it to be halal, then that's a problem. Okay.
So this is what we were touching on next. You've gone straight to the next point with regards to scholars who are experts in that field. That's
right. So you see, because when a mufti gives a fatwa, he is established a hukm, and that has legal standing. If a non-trained scholar, or somebody who doesn't have expertise in a certain area, he gives an opinion, okay, then that's just an opinion. But if a trained scholar is expressing a view, then he's giving a hukm. And when he's giving that hukm, then one can be somewhat free from that responsibility, because the scholar is trained to do that. It's like, for example, as long as a surgeon doesn't do something silly and someone passes away whilst he's operating on them, and he's not done anything wrong, then he won't be sent, he won't be sent to jail, for example. He won't lose his medical. But if an untrained surgeon decides to carry out an operation and he kills the person in the process, now he will go to jail, even though the outcome is exactly the same. and they both tried to save the person's life. They both had good intentions. One is qualified to do something, and one is not qualified to do something. So there you can see the difference there. You know, we always go against vigilantism, don't we? We say you cannot decide if somebody commits a crime. Let's just say somebody breaks your car windows and you see them breaking your car windows. You cannot go across to his house, smash his windows and beat him up. And when the police come around, you say, well, I saw him break my window, so I took the law into my own hands. You get arrested for that. But if the police officer or somebody else did that and took him inside and charged him for breaking your windows, he can do that. Why? Because the law allows him to do that. And this is the same with the Sharia. The law allows the trained scholar to express an opinion, even if that opinion comes out wrong, but it does not allow an untrained person to express that opinion.
Because looking at that from the market trends at the moment now, there's a huge growing trend, and it's great, it's commendable, it's amazing, because it's going to give the Muslim community more opportunities and options. But also we've got to be more astute in identifying those opportunities and options as being valid opportunities and options, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. So we're very happy, and we support the growth of this halal market, because what it does, it gives more, competition is good at the end of the day. Why? Because it brings the prices down for the consumer. And what it also does, it gives more opportunities for the consumer. So that can only be a good thing. However, it's a market which, because the state does not sort of govern it, like say vegan and vegetarian, the halal label has been left for the Muslims to look after. Then not any Muslim can look after that. We must, as a community, build up those and hold in high esteem those individuals who have established expertise in this area based on their track record, based on their qualification, based on their skills and experience, to say, we're going to use this guy or these guys as a benchmark because this is what they've done so far. So we're in good hands here. Until, obviously, I doubt it, but maybe in the future, the government takes an involvement and says, actually, we're now going to work with a group of people and we're going to actually support and protect the label halal, so that it has to be done in a certain way. I doubt that's going to come very soon, but in the meantime, it's the scholar's responsibility. But it can't just be any scholar that decides that. We've got to look at who they are, what track record do they have some expertise in this area, have the community utilize them in this, have they got proven over the years that they are of good stature and standard, and do the ulama respect this person as this kind of expert?
That's a very detailed answer. Thank you very much. In relation to the trends now, in relation to the products and services, we have digital products, we have services, whether it's accounts, legal, all other services in that industry, business development, etc. And then you have consumer goods, and these are all different categories. Do we need to be just as aware of halal, haram in every one of these categories?
Yes, absolutely. Goes without saying. In fact, every aspect of human behavior and activity, there is halal and haram. There is not a single activity that has been, excluded for that. Even something as mundane as, answering the call of nature. And some might not reach to the level of halal and haram, but it reaches to praiseworthy and disliked. So if something as mundane as that has etiquettes and legalities and illegalities, then surely something which is going to be putting food inside your stomach, putting a roof over your head, putting clothes on your back, and on top of that, how the world is going to run is going to have even more so profound expectation upon the individual to ensure that he and she is looking at the halal and the haram of it 100%.
I was really impressed and surprised when you were talking about the layers with your consultancy. So in your journey as a scientist to scholar to Hafiz, Alim, Mufti, to running your own schools, state schools, as well as Dini establishments, to your Darul Ifta, to being the head of National Zakat Foundation worldwide, Ikra TV, etc. Your study and your research. you said something quite interesting in your consultancy side of things when I was talking to yourself, and you went into how do you certify, and so you went from certifying the product, certifying the company, certifying the website, certifying the marketing. All of that together is a complete. It doesn't mean that just because you certified the food is halal, it doesn't mean that you as Mufti Sab now with RG Group and now with RG Advisory, you're not certifying the marketing strategy. You gave that an example of the global company that you were working with, and how you said just you've got the rose, by putting poo on the rose does not make the rose
Yes,
any better.
100%. It's, we have this contradiction in our approach where we have a halal product, but then the manner in which we sort of market it, the manner in which we offer it to the community, it's through a haram way. So it's kind of goes, it's a bit of madness, really, that we can disconnect. And the phrase cognitive dissonance comes in, where we can disconnect that, hold on, we're doing a good thing here. Why are we using these methods to do a good thing here? It could even be, it's like, for example, and this is a quite extreme example I'll give, but it's like having a song to call people to the masjid for salah. Now you say, well, I'm doing a good thing. Well, hold on, yeah, but people listen to the adhan, they might not be attracted to it. But if I put a song on, a musical song, something which is really famous right now, people will listen to that and think, oh, that's a really good song by Fala Fala. Let me go to this place, and people will come to the masjid. What are you saying, brother? This has to be done in a way completely holistically. The adhan has to be done. The call to the prayer is as important as the prayer itself. So the actual product that you're providing, whether it be whatever it might be, or the service that you're offering your community, then the manner in which you are calling people towards it and providing it equally has to have that same halalness to it as you would in terms of the product itself.
No, that's a very, very interesting example that you've given there. But again, so now we talked about this on a bit more of a broader framework, and I think the audience will appreciate that you've gone from broad to a lot more in depth, and that's one thing that I've found fascinating. I know that people ask about schools of thought, and is it this school of thought, is it that school of thought? But like you were saying, you're talking about the belief system is in schools of thought, but in most of the fiqh in relation to business is
absolutely. In terms of how we approach things, most of the work, if you do search on the internet or any history of my work, you'll see that most of my work is in a generic way. It is to the Muslim community, and anything that could be drawn from it is drawn from the tradition. Meaning whether it comes from any of the schools of law, the Hanafi, the Maliki, the Shafi, the Hanbali, then even though it will be particularly, most of my work is based on the Hanafi school, you'll find obviously that particularly in Buyu, the general matters are pretty much accepted now as similar. There are little differences, but because we're such a small community in such a big world, there has to be some flexibility. So when we're working in, say, in the far east area, Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Indonesia, then we're naturally going to have that Shafi sort of twing to it. We cannot disconnect from that, because that's the world we operate in. It would seem somewhat alien to try to apply Hanafi specifics and nuances in that environment. And you've seen as well with the senior ulama that sit on these international boards, they realize that, okay, we ain't in some small northern city in England where we can live in somewhat of a, no, I won't use the word enclave, but we live in a closed environment with a very closed community coming from a very specific place. And therefore, we need to address things in a certain way. When we come out of that into a global sphere, we cannot think like that. We cannot act like that. We cannot advise like that, because it would be, again, speaking to a very small community. So yes, when it comes to buyu, when it comes to trade, you will see that there's somewhat more flexibility in order to get the general halalness and the general haramness system organized. And there'll be somewhat little bit of accepting from different schools, particularly the Shafi school as well. But there's bits of the Maliki in there as well, and the Hanafi, in order to get that global position with Islamic transactions and business.
No, that's fantastic. If you've got any more questions or anything that you wish to ask Mufti Saab and the team, another thing that a lot of people don't know, you have a team of scholars, you have a network, and you have your own Darul Ifta, and you're working across various schools, and you're very neutral in your portrayal of deen, and you're very neutral in the way that you talk about fiqh and the way that you present the fiqh, and it's quite palatable, and you worked with most of the scholars from most of the schools of thought, and you have good relations with a lot of those scholars. But if you've got any questions in relation to this topic itself, please leave a comment in the comment section, like, share, follow, and we hope to see you in the next video. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.